You step on stage in front of a crowd of people. You stand in front of the microphone. You look out in front of the crowd. You open your mouth and you freeze. You don't remember what you were going to say. You start to panic. It's one of the biggest fears that anybody in the world has, public speaking, and specifically getting stage fright or forgetting what you're going to say in a public speaking opportunity. Has this ever happened to you? Have you heard of it happening to other people and you're worried it could happen to you? Regardless of your situation, whatever has prompted you to land on this video, first off, thank you for taking the time to watch. And I hope to, over the next few minutes, share some tips and advice to drastically reduce the chance of you freezing or getting stage fright while public speaking. Hey everyone, my name is Wade Patterson. I have a whole YouTube channel that is dedicated to impactful communication. I am passionate about public speaking and all forms of communication. So if that is an area of life you want to improve upon, consider subscribing to my channel, hit the notifications bell so you never miss a video, and comment below. I'd love to hear if stage fright or freezing while public speaking is something that has ever happened to you. I do my best to go through every single comment, so make sure, leave a comment. I will definitely check it out. I love to hear your own story. So back to the tips about how to avoid stage fright or freezing while public speaking. The first tip is something that I talk about all the time on this channel, and the reason I talk about it because I think it is the single most important thing when it comes to becoming an effective public speaker. And it's not something that's going to shock you or surprise you. It's very simple, and that is to practice. Practice, practice, practice. It is so important. And I'm not sure why some people think they don't need to practice when it comes to public speaking. Perhaps it's because there's these individuals out there who claim that they always just wing it when it comes to speeches, that they get in front of the audience, they grab the microphone, and they can just talk about whatever is on their brain. And sure, there are some of these individuals that exist in the world, but I promise you they are few and far between. Even the best public speakers most often are people who put in a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of practice public speaking. For myself, I am definitely not one of those individuals that can wing it. Whenever I have an opportunity to speak in front of a group, I've often spent a lot of time practicing for that opportunity, and usually that helps me ensure that I'm going to do a pretty good job, and also that I'm probably going to be a bit less nervous about doing it because I've already done this speech 10, 20 times in my head or in my vehicle driving to work, so it feels a lot more natural than if I was to just do it from scratch on the spot. The second tip I have, because practice was kind of an obvious one, so the second tip I have to avoid stage fright or freezing when public speaking is to have water on hand. One of the big causes for people to slip up when they're speaking in front of a group is that their bodies or your body, it may have our bodies do some weird things when we speak in front of a group of people because of the nerves and all of the emotions we're experiencing. And one of those things often has to do with your voice and your mouth. And our mouths tend to get really, really dry when we speak in front of a group of people. Maybe you've been to a presentation where somebody has been talking and you just hear this gross, I apologize, that probably sounded horrible coming into this mic, but you hear that gross, almost like mouth smacking sound of their mouth just is dry. And what happens is if you have that physical body response that your mouth gets really dry and you notice it, you start to panic because we notice it more than anybody probably in the audience even notices it, but then we get panicked that they're really noticing it, and then that can cause us to lose track of where we were at in our speech, and we can start to panic and get really nervous. A really important thing, even if you never take a sip of water, is to have water nearby. I do this every time I speak in front of a group of people. I always have water because I've had that happen to me. And the truth is, even going and grabbing your water and taking a sip, even if you don't need it for your mouth being dry, it allows you to take a second to pause, to collect your thoughts. So even if you're freezing for a different reason, you can grab that water, you can take a sip. Nobody is going to find that odd. That doesn't look strange. It doesn't look weird. People are used to public speakers sipping water in between. And so to have that on hand, it will buy you a couple extra seconds, and it will, again, reduce those chances that you experience total freezing or stage fright when public speaking. The third tip I have is if you have notes, written notes, don't have one single piece of paper, like just one piece of paper in your hands. This is a weird one, but here's my rationale for it. When we have one single piece of paper in our hands, another body response we often have, along with getting a dry mouth, is our hands shaking. That is incredibly common. Next time you're watching a bunch of people speak in public, especially if they haven't done so before, take a look at their hands. A lot of people naturally have their hands shake when they speak in front of a group of people. Now, the reason for this tip of not having just one piece of paper in your hand is that if your hand is shaking and you have a single piece of paper, that is going to be very noticeable. The paper is going to flutter. It may even make a noise. I have seen some people who really start shaking when they public speak, where that paper is like, it's proper noisy as they're trying to talk, and you don't want to have that situation. There's a couple ways around it. If you do just have one piece of paper and there's a lectern, you can put the paper on the lectern, but I don't like, and those who have watched other videos, you know that I've given this tip in the past, I don't like the idea of standing behind a lectern because that eliminates so much of your body language. So if possible, move the lectern to the side. You still have your notes that are there that you can speak to the crowd, you can speak to the audience, you can quickly reference your notes, and then turn back and open up and continue with the speaking. So if there is a lectern or a table where you can set your notes and they're still within eyesight, that works just fine. If that is not the case, there's nothing to set your single piece of paper. If you have a book or a binder, something hardcover preferably, you can carry that with you, or maybe even a clipboard or something like that. That way, even if your hands start shaking, a binder is too heavy to be noticeable. People won't know that your hand is shaking, even if it is a little bit. The single piece of paper, it's going to flutter, it's going to make noise. So have something solid, because again, that's just another prompt for us to freeze up public speaking. If something is happening, shaking, then we get nervous. We think everyone is paying attention to that thing that is happening, and it takes away from our speech. If you can eliminate that, have something solid, place it on a lectern, it's one less chance of you freezing while public speaking. The next tip I have for reducing the chance of stage fright or freezing while speaking in front of a group of people is to stand up and face the audience before you actually deliver your speech. Depending on the venue, depending on the format, this may be something that is a little bit difficult, but it's actually not usually that difficult. Most events that I'm at some point, if I'm delivering a speech, I will make my way to the front, just off to the side in the corner, and I will stand and I will face the audience. The reason for this is that one of the most daunting things for many people is, especially if you're sitting down at a long event and then suddenly you're asked to speak, you walk up to the front and it's your first time facing everyone. And that experience, maybe it's just not what you had envisioned in your head, that vantage point where you're in front of all of these faces staring at you, it all of a sudden becomes very intimidating. And that is one of the reasons people freeze. But if you can find a time in advance to casually, without anyone noticing, stand near the front, maybe it's during a break or something like that, and face the audience, face all of the people, now you've already experienced that vantage point. So later in the day, when you're called up to give your speech, you make your way up to the front, you stand, you look at everyone, and you've already had that mental picture. You visualized yourself giving that speech already, and it's going to be less scary when you actually do it. Another tip I like to have is to stand up in advance just in general. So the earlier mention was to stand up and face the audience, but if you know your speech is coming up pretty soon, stand off to the side of the room. You have a certain energy when you're stood up compared to when you're sat down, and it's helping your body get ready and prepare for the fact that you're about to deliver a speech. You're going to come out with more energy, more calm, more composed. The final tip I have for you to avoid stage fright, to avoid public speaking, not to avoid public speaking, to avoid freezing while public speaking, is to use humor. And again, anyone who has followed this channel for a little while, you've seen any of my other videos, I probably mentioned at some point injecting humor in your speech. It is such a powerful tool because it does two things. First off, it relaxes the audience. Often audiences are wondering when a speaker takes the stage whether he or she is going to be entertaining or funny or if they're going to enjoy the experience. If you can sprinkle some humor in early and get them laughing or smiling, that relaxes the audience. They settle down, they say, okay, this is going to be a good experience. As for you, the speaker, there is no bigger shot of confidence it gives you than hearing your audience laugh, seeing them smile, knowing that they are enjoying themselves. The earlier you can do that in the speech, the better. It's really powerful. It's going to relax you. It's going to make you more comfortable. And again, significantly reduce the chances of freezing or getting stage fright while public speaking. I hope that these tips were helpful to you. If you're about to deliver a public speech, maybe you haven't really done this before and you're really nervous, you're going to be fine. Feel free to check out some of the other videos. I cover the whole gamut of public speaking. It's something I'm passionate about. Don't think you are the only one feeling these emotions. It is incredibly common to be nervous about public speaking. I still get nerves before I speak in front of groups of people. It is natural, it is normal, but you are going to do an incredible job. If you liked this video, consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.